Can you be sure that your love for God will not grow cold? That's the question today. The Apostle Peter was certain that his love for Jesus was like a rock. I mean, Peter means the rock. He was sure. He insisted that he would never deny his love and allegiance to Christ. He was very wrong. We see that in Matthew 26, verses 33 and 74. Peter was a close friend. He'd left his fishing business and family to follow Christ, yet he denied him 3 times. That's why Jesus, after his resurrection, when he made breakfast on the seashore in John 21, questioned Peter 3 times to set the record straight. Deny me 3 times, and you tell me 3 times that you love me. And Peter assured him 3 times that he really did love him. That was the key to being a true disciple. John 21, 15 to 17. Why is it then in our generations that many leaders in the church leave the faith? Even at one time, their love was so hot. Well, Jesus prophesied that apart from the wars and the rumours of wars and the pandemics and the earthquakes and all the other stuff we're going through at the moment, towards the end of the age, that Christians will cool off in their love for him and leave. Matthew 24, verse 12, from the Passion Translation. There will be such an increase in the sin of lawlessness that those whose hearts once burned with passion for God and others will grow cold. That's from the Passion. Now, why should this be? The Apostle John and the Apostle Paul explained. In 1 John 2:18, John wrote that even at the end of the 1st century AD, the Antichrist spirit was already in the world. Now, we don't know who the Antichrist is. We'll be raptured before he's revealed. But the Antichrist spirit is in the world. And he warned us to test where thoughts from the spiritual world originate. Spirits communicate with us by thought. He said this in 1 John 4. Beloved, do not put faith in every spirit. Test the spirits to discover whether they proceed from God. Because there are many false prophets in the world. By this you will know and perceive and recognize the Spirit of God. Every spirit that acknowledges and confesses that Jesus the Christ is become in the flesh, he came in the flesh, has God as its source. And every spirit which does not acknowledge and confess that Jesus Christ came in the flesh is not of God. This is the spirit of Antichrist, of which you heard it was coming. It's already in the world. Now, I know that passage very well. I'm an exorcist. I know that passage. But I was only quoting verses 1 and 2. Now, I wasn't quoting verse 3. And it says in verse 3, as I say, the spirit of Antichrist is already here. The Apostle Paul confirms this. In 2 Thessalonians 2, he wrote, for the mystery of lawlessness, that hidden principle of rebellion against constituted authority, is already at work in the world, and is restrained only until he who restrains is taken out of the way. Now, that's commonly discussed to mean the church. And then the lawless one, the Antichrist, will be revealed and destroyed by the breath of the Lord Jesus. 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 7 and 8. So once the rapture of the church has happened, and the church is taken out of the way, then the Antichrist will reveal. But his spirit is already in the world. It's clear that because of the increase of rebellion in the world, the spirit of Antichrist is here. That's why the love of Christians will grow cold. Now, having understood that, we must realise that our love for Christ is constantly under attack by woke philosophy, promoted by mobs, and I use that word advisedly, they're like mobs on social media. I stay away from all social media. The present administration in the US, as well as other left-leaning governments, applaud such antichrist attitudes. They will reap God's judgment, especially for exploiting and influencing vulnerable children. Wokeness tells us to love ourselves and to get as much pleasure out of life as possible. This should be our first priority on the road to happiness, they say. Wokeness is part of the strong delusion that Paul spoke of in 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 11. Now, what's actually happening in practice? In the old wineskin traditional churches, members are finding that their marriages are collapsing, and it's often caused by absorbing lies about what wokeness is propagating about the Antichrist, about who we should love and who we should not love. Timothy, Paul wrote to Timothy, warning him about all the things we're seeing today. I'll just pick up some phrases from 2 Timothy 3 verses 1 to 4. Know this: in the last days people will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, unloving towards their family, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God. Now notice how the love of God has been transferred. Instead of loving him, we love ourselves, money and pleasure. So how can I advise you and advise myself to stay safe? Here are some safeguards against the Antichrist spirit. Number one, realize the Antichrist spirit is all around us. We are surrounded. No need to fear, we're surrounded. But the Spirit of God in us is stronger than the Antichrist spirit. That's something to notice. Okay? 1 John 5:19 says the spirit of lawlessness is all around us. Realize that. Number two, be watchful over yourself and obey your spiritual leaders and submit yourself to them, because they're keeping watch over your souls and guarding your spiritual welfare. That's Hebrews 13 and verse 17. And thirdly, love the truth. Love the truth, welcome the truth, and love the truth, that you might be saved and stay saved. That's 2 Thessalonians 2 and verse 10. If you do those three things, you can just smile and be at rest, because you know that Antichrist spirit is not going to make your love for Christ grow cold. See you soon.